Hello guys, once again it's Matt, and today we have another video. Thank you all the members, all the patrons. Make sure to subscribe and let's get into it. And today we are going to talk a little bit about what is the best nation to grind in top tier specifically, or with the objective of getting top tier air specifically. We're not talking about tanks. A lot of people always ask me this, and I wanted to make a video covering that because some people just feel kind of lost, especially after they research their first nation. Sometimes people, I don't know, they like, for example, Italy, and they research everything in Italy, and then they are kind of bored with Italy because there is not much else going on, and then they decided to go to another nation, but they don't know what nation they should choose. Maybe the USSR, maybe USA because it's more meta, maybe, I don't know, maybe Israel because it has some cool skins for the same aircraft. I don't know. People will tend to get lost and not have kind of an idea on how each nation is right now, and most important, what is going to be the future of that nation. Many countries will have some limitations on the future until we receive like very modern stuff in the far future, so we're going to talk about that as well. But first, the present. I think that's just obvious. There is two nations that you always need to get. If you are getting into the game right now, I would always advise you to actually get one of these two nations. And also, if you don't have at least one of them yet, get them. Why? Because these two will be the most important ones in the sense of content. So, not only you will always have a meta, not only right now, but also in the future. Also, it will basically be future-proof. It will always have something to come, even in like a very far future kind of situation. And I think it's kind of obvious, it is the USA and the USSR. They are the main nations for the Cold War, and if you are trying to get to a top-tier kind of environment in the air battles, these two will always have the best aircraft, or maybe not the best of the best of the best, but they will be close enough, and in the specific cases that they are not. And also, they will always have content in the future. The USSR was my first, I mean, technically it was Germany, but I shortly, when I started to play, shifted to the mix, right, to the USSR. And it was a very good just choice, because the USSR, even in today's Russia, right, you will always have something to be added. That's the first reason. I personally love the MiGs, and I always wanted to get the MiGs. They are my favorite type of aircraft, light, nimble, and just overall amazing. And together with being future-proof, basically. So the USSR was my first one, and USA also was one that I got it shortly afterwards. Because of the same kind of reasons. I like the aircraft a little bit less, but the future-proofness of it and the meta is always going to be balancing towards these two nations. They had, and they kind of have already, but still, especially in the Cold War, they had the most money going into these researches. They had the most, basically, bureaus or companies. They had the most design philosophies, the most designs in general, right? So while you have, for example, in France, right now, for example, the Mirage 2000 having a fighter and an attack variant, and they kind of do everything that they needed to do, the US will have in the future, right, the F-15, the F-16, the F-18, the F-14, you have the F-4s, you have many other types of aircraft, you have the A-10, and you have a lot of designs. The same goes for the USSR. It has the naval aircraft, you have the VVS aircraft that are divided in interceptors, high-altitude interceptors or escort aircraft like the Su-27, and light fighter point defense aircraft, CAS aircraft, bombers, interdictors, bombers, right? So there's many types of aircraft that you can actually fly. And also in the future, as I said, again, you will be, these two nations will be the most like future-proof nation, as I said. So if you haven't had like time to actually research one of these two, go for it. Don't be afraid. I know they are the most like problematic ones because they are the most that have the most vehicles. So it will take a long time to grind, but you always have something for to get, to be meta, to be fun to fly, and be just overall competitive. So yeah, the USA and the USSR are the two main ones. Then we have kind of secondary ones, but they're not that secondary. It depends on the rotation, but the main thing is that either they are very good right now, or they will be very good in the future. I think Germany gets into that position, China gets into that position, maybe Israel, yeah, Israel can be one of them. And that's basically it. These three nations, they either have a very good lineup right now. For example, Germany, it doesn't have the most amount of aircraft of anything, but they do have the MiG-29, and they do have the MiG-23 MLA, MiG-21Bs, the Tornado IDS. I know it's not the most amazing thing in air battles, but they are fairly cool. The premiums are pretty good. The SPS and the Lazur are amazing. You have the F4Fs, and in the future, you will receive some stuff. It is not as future-proof like as the USSR and USA, but yeah, you will get the Eurofighter in the far future. You can have the F4F ICE. It is kind of limited, but right now, it is amazing if it's MiG-29, so it is a little bit easier to get than the USSR, I think, in my opinion, but you just have less aircraft to research, right? But and still you can get a MiG-29, so one of the best aircraft in the game. So yeah, even though it's not that future-proof, it is amazing right now. And it has a limitation in numbers, but still. Then we go for China. China right now, it is a little bit limited. The only thing that it actually has going for it is the F-16 MLU, which is amazing, but still it's limited. It has some other tier 7 aircraft that are good, like the J7, the G8 is pretty alright, the F5E, they're okay, the premiums are okay. But the thing is the future. It's a very easy nation, it's a very quick nation to research because it doesn't have a lot of aircraft to get it. And in the future, it will be amazing. It will have a lot of aircraft that the Soviets had, and even some other modifications to it, and some other aircraft. So we can see in the future J10s, J11s, J15s, 16s, even maybe in the far future, the J20. So the only other nation besides the USSR and the USA that can have their own design 5th generation aircraft. All the others will have the F-35 in the far future if it's ever receiving it. So yeah, it's one of the nations that not a lot of people pay attention to, but in the future it will be a very good nation to have after the USA. If you got the USA and you don't want to go through all the parts and bits of getting the MiGs on USSR, go for Germany or China, and in the future you will have some similar type of aircraft as the Soviets, but having as much smaller, specifically on the Chinese, much smaller tech tree to grind. So the Chinese are very good in the future. Right now they're kind of limited, but they will get there. It's very different from Germany, but they are kind of in a secondary role. And then we have Israel. Israel would be the same as China, but for people that actually research it, the USSR. Israel is a much shorter tech tree. It has a minor thing that you need to have at least a rank 4, if I'm not mistaken, to actually be able to research it. I don't know if that's the truth or not. I have to check if that's the case still or not. But still, I think it is the case. I have to check it, but I think it is the case. But either way, it is a very short, very short tech tree, and it is kind of limited right now. The Kronos 2000 is the only aircraft that can do BVR properly. The Nets doesn't have BVR. It's an amazing aircraft, but it is limited as well. But in the future, it will be amazing. You will have F-15s, F-35s even, more advanced F-16s, and some own designs like more modifications of the Kafir, maybe the La Vie or something weird like that. So yeah, we have many modifications of aircraft that can be here with a much smaller tech tree, and also with the ability to just jump from an American aircraft with a smaller tech tree. So if you research at the USSR and you want an American kind of tech tree that it's easier to actually get, the Israeli one is going to be that one. You always have a very modern version of an American aircraft as well. So if you got the USSR, the Israelis would be a very good option to just stay away from that. But remember, also another thing that you need to consider is that these smaller tech trees, like Israel specifically, they can be your main nation as well for initiating in top tier. Why? Because, as I said, they're very easy to get to top tier. Very small aircraft, small tech tree, so it is just very easy to get there, right? Then we go for these other nations. I would only advise you guys to go to these nations if you... these nations specifically, they're going to be very good, but they're going to be limited, very limited in the future, and going to be very limited in the models and aircraft. It will be very limited in general of having just a few models, but they're not that bad still. The Swedish is the first one that I wanted to talk about because they have kind of a limitation. They are only having the vegan right now. In the future they can have the Gripen, which will be very good, but still it's not like 100 models of aircraft, right? You have just like 2 or 3 aircraft coming for the Swedish part of it, and then in the far future you can receive the F-18C for the Finnish part of the tech tree. So it has some future proofing to it. You can even get the F-35 for the Finnish, but it's like, it's limited, you know? Doesn't have a proper BVR. The J-37D right now, it is very limited in the BVR. The radar is very bad, and the Skyflash range is just abysmal. It's not made for that. So yeah, it is a tech tree that has a lot of limitations, but if you want a short tech tree that has something going for it in the future with very different and unique designs, that's the main thing, apart from the Finnish part of the tech tree, but for the Swedish part, very, very unique designs, the Swedish is there for you. The French is the other one. I think it is going to be a very, very good tech tree in the future. Right now it's all right. It's not bad. The Mirage 2000C it's pretty amazing actually. The 2000D as well. They're both very, very good aircraft. But it is limited in the number of aircraft. We will have probably 1 or 2 more Mirage 2000s, maybe just one. And then we get to the Rafale, and then we probably will see some variants of it. I even plan to actually do a video talking about the French tech tree, and some other aircraft like the Super Tenere and stuff. But it is very limited in a general way. You always get less stuff in the other nations, and it's not a particularly small tech tree to grind. So, and the props of French design are pretty bad most of the time. So I don't know. It's not very meta. It is very difficult to fly. But it has a very good top tier that it will get better in the future, but it is limited in the same way as Sweden. Italy is even more limited, I think. Even though they are getting the F-35, if I'm not mistaken, and they can get the ADV, the Tornado ADV, I would stay away from Italy just because even though it is a semi-small tech tree, it's not as small as Israeli ones, but it's not big as well. But it doesn't have anything basically going for it. The IDS is pretty alright. The F-16A ADF, you can get some modifications to carry the M120 in the future, and the ADV also can be a very fun aircraft to fly. But in overall sense, it is going to be, that's basically it, right? It's not going to have too much stuff in the future. Of course, you can have the Eurofighter as well, and the F-35, but that's far away, and it's very, very limited until there. We probably just see the ADV and some other attackers and stuff, and there's not going to be that much stuff to actually grind. It has some top tier stuff, but it is limited. Japan is another example of that. It is a very big actually nation to actually grind, so it is hard to get to like the rank 6, 7, but then it's kind of easy to get directly to 8 because there's not much thing to get there, and it will always be kind of in the top tier. Once we get F-15s, we will get F-15s. Once we get like 4+ generation aircraft, we will get the Mitsubishi F2. Once we get the 5th generation, if we ever get, we have the F-35. But that's pretty much it. It's going to be some fighters, nothing too crazy, and very, very limited tech tree in the top tier. So Japan It is one that I would advise you guys to just stay away from it, if you don't want to just keep playing the same aircraft over and over again, or had to just go for another tech tree, you know. And same goes, and probably the worst one, to be honest, is the British one. It is one of the largest ones that we have to actually get to top tier. And once you get to top tier, it has basically nothing. The Tornado F3, it is a very limited aircraft. It is an interceptor that you need to use in a specific way. The Harrier GR7, it is fun, but it is limited as well. The Harrier, the Tornado GR1 is also limited. In the rank 7, everything is limited. I mean, Phantoms FGRs, they're alright, you can use them, but they're very just okay-ish. And in the future, we will need to wait a long time to actually get the Eurofighter. I don't know when they are planning to actually add something like that, but that's pretty much it. And after a very long time, we might get the F-35, but that's pretty much it. There isn't many things to come to the UK line. So it is one of the biggest lines that we have in game, together with having a very poor top tier lineup, just very poor. So I would put the US and USSR as the first rank on that. You should really get those nations. Germany, China, and Israel can be like the secondary ones that you want to like change it up a little bit of the gameplay if you're playing one of these two nations that I told you before. And also they have a lot of things to come in the future. Not a lot, but at least something to come. The other ones, the European ones, the Italians, French, Sweden, and Japan, they are very limited. They're not going to get too much stuff. So if you're going to research that, bear that in mind. And Great Britain, it is just bad. It is hard to get to the top tier. The aircraft are sometimes really hard to fly, especially in the rank 5 and some in the rank 6 as well. And it is just overall a very limited tech tree, and it doesn't have much going on in the future as well. So yeah, it's problematic. It's never going to get something as good as a MiG-29 for now. And when it gets the Eurofighter, everybody will have it as well. And the Russians will have better stuff, and the US as well. So just overall, stay away a little bit if it's your first nation. Not really competitive. But basically, this is my opinion on the nations that you should grind or not. As I said, focus on USSR and USA. They're the bigger ones, but they are going to be the best ones, like probably forever, because they just have more designs, better. They had more money to do the designs better, more companies, more bureaus and stuff. So yeah. Basically, this is it. Let me know in the comments what you think about these nations, and I see you guys on the next one. Subscribe, and bye guys. See you.